New in version 6 is the ability for CabinetSense to position user objects or artifacts. Things such as closet rods, clothes, baskets, and lots more. So what we've done is that we will attach your objects to one of the horizontal members, such as the top or a shelf, etc. And once it's attached, moving the shelf will also move your artifacts for you. So in this segment, we'll show you how to program your own artifacts. And we'll show you how to do it in two ways. The first method is to go to the 3D warehouse and find an artifact that you'd like to incorporate into your model. And we'll download it directly into our model. What we want to end up with is the kitten picture being able to sit on any shelf or bottom or top of the cabinet. And just like any other internal part, the picture would be inside the cabinet. So when we're programming, we must also have that artifact inside the cabinet that we're programming. The easy way to do this is to go to the SketchUp outliner and take the component and simply drag it into the closet. Now when I click on the closet, it's inside. If I edit the closet, I can now select the picture itself and move it inside the closet as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is attach code to the picture so that it can sit on top of any of the shelves. So a little bit of programming information. If I double click on the picture, you can see the picture or the components X, Y, and Z axes. And so what we're programming is where this particular axis will be in relation to the shelf's axes. So if I go to the shelf and look at its axes, it is on the bottom left-hand corner of the shelf. And 99.9% of all CabinetSense components are developed that way. If you go to the Dynamic Components Component Attribute dialog, which if you've got the toolbar, you can go that way. You can also right mouse click, Dynamic Components, and Component Attributes. We want to control the up and down movement, and that is the Z axis or attribute. And what we're going to do is change this to be a formula that references the shelf. And to reference the shelf, I've now clicked on it. This is the unique name of the shelf. So I'm going to double click, do a Control-C to copy the name, go back to my picture, double click to get inside, and you have to double click. That's telling the dynamic components you're about to enter a formula. Click equals to say this is a formula. I'll paste in the unique name of the shelf, exclamation mark, which then says the next thing that comes will be an attribute name, and it's simply Z. So I'm saying position the Z of this picture to be the same as the Z of the shelf. Hitting enter. It's now jumped down to the bottom of the shelf because that's the XYZ of the picture and the XYZ of the shelf. And so the attribute that I want to reference is the shelf and the length of Z. And it's now moved up, and it's now sitting on top of the shelf. That's all that we need to do to program this particular picture. We won't worry about worrying where you place it along the shelf or how far back into the shelf. So we'll just control it, and CabinetSense will now position it to the closest shelf that you drag it to. So let's give it a test. First, we're going to go and name our component. So we'll go to the Entity Information dialog, and we'll type in the name we want to know it by. This is the name that shows up in the component browser. We'll now right mouse click on the picture and choose Save As. I'm going to save it back into our CabinetSense library, and I'm going to give it the same name. I'm going to remove the one I've just developed, and it's a good practice to purge everything out of the model so that there's no reference to the picture that I was developing, so we can be assured that we're testing the one that we're dragging out from the browser. There's our picture. If I take it and drag it down, it now drops to the lower shelf because that was the closest shelf to attach it to. Going up, and put as many pictures in as you want. Okay, that's sample or example one. The second example we'll look at is developing our own component from scratch. So for this exercise, we'll develop a closet rod. We'll go into Edit. Turn color off for a second. And I'm going to draw a 3/4 inch radius circle. I'm going to color it now and change it to a silver color. Use the push-pull tool to pull it out. I've now got a 3-dimensional object. I'll lasso all of the edges and faces. Right mouse click and make component. Let's call it a closet rod. We're now back to the same point that we were at with the picture. We pull up the attributes. There's no attributes in there. We're going to attach it to a shelf. So let's go get the name. I'll copy it. In this case, we want to control the up and down, front to back, left to right, as well as the length of the closet rod. So I'm going to pull in all of the position attributes. I'm going to pull in the length. And again, if you remember, X is the width, left to right. So let's start with the length. Equal our shelf name, exclamation mark, length of X. Basically saying make it the same length as the shelf. Our X position will be the shelf's starting position. Start at the same front as the shelf, and arbitrarily I'm going to move it back 3 inches. The same Z position for the shelf, and perhaps, well, let's just do that so we can see where it's going to end up. We're at the very bottom of the shelf, and I'm going to subtract 3 inches. And so that's all the code that you need to automate this closet rod. Right now, the depth and height of the closet rod is 1.49 inches. I will make this a formula as well so that it stays constant. Our entity info already has closet rod. Let's save it back to our model. And as we did before, we'll purge it, get rid of all the definitions inside the model, and let's go try it out. There's our closet rod, and we can move it. Now, one more thing that we're going to do with this component that we didn't do with the picture was that you may develop your own components, and when you use it in your model, you want it to show up on the bill of materials. So for example, perhaps when I use this closet rod, I also want to know that I need to purchase a closet rod as well as perhaps the brackets. So let's do that. I'm going to hide the end. I'm going to edit the closet rod. And I'm going to go into our patterns folder, and I'm just going to pick up this hardware pattern object. And I'll place the pattern on the end of the closet rod. And I will also place it next to where the axes are, so that as the closet rod grows or shrinks, this pattern object doesn't interfere with perhaps sticking out the other side of the end of the cabinet. So just little things like that that make your life easier. Now that I've put the pattern onto the closet rod, you can see that I can enter in hardware. So I need one closet rod and I need 2 closet rod brackets and whatever else. So if I put 2 in, and go ahead and export it, and looking at the bill of materials that was generated from this, we have 2 closet rods and 4 brackets. And so now every time you drop your closet rod in, you will get those hardware requirements showing up on your bill of materials. And that's the end of this segment. Happy programming, and thanks for watching.